Talk and Shop Network makes no apologies for what you're about to hear. The host might, though. It's the $9 Podcast with Drewski. Because moderating for Pro Wrestling's Good Brothers wasn't enough work. Talking wrestling and more. Weekly on all major podcast networks.
And we're back with another episode of the $9 Podcast with Drewski. Weekly bit of nonsense that pretty much you can listen to worldwide, wherever you listen to podcasts. This is my episode number 49 in total, and one away from the big 50, which is looking back, which is a very incredible thing, because I've said before in like a previous podcast that there's a study out that says only 2% of podcasts that are started won't never make it past episode 50, and I have episode 50 on the horizon, and it's like it's a real good feeling, sticking to it, and I hope it comes across. Thanks for coming in, basically hopping on board late, or if you've been listening since the beginning, you've heard the improvements, you've heard the screw ups, you've heard that, enough rambling for the last some people months, but it is what it is. And the big thing in the Falcon's Nest, which is the name of the dedicated chat for the Talk and Shop Patreon, is that Machine Gun Carl Anderson took a little bit of a vacation after a couple of weeks of after almost a month in Japan, coming back from Noah. He basically unplugged and basically lived like a normal human being for like 2.5 weeks. No updates, whatever. So, needless to say, he jumped back into the nest a couple of days ago, like playing catch up. His head was spinning with like everything going on. But that happens. It's like the world doesn't stop turning. Time marches on, and it's good that they're the boys are back doing what they back making towns, because they just got back from a little sojourn to California, where they did like a seminar for D'Lo Brown's school, and the next day did like a television taping in Long Beach, which apparently it was supposed to be live streamed, but they had as any like new indie has, where it's like it's sort of a nightmare situation for like an indie first starting out. It's like you have video problems, and that's apparently what happened. And supposedly they're going to try again and basically re-air what the show was supposed to be. And Tuesday is supposed to be happening today, at the day as I'm taping. So we'll see how it goes. It's an interesting. It was an interesting mix of people on the cards. Like some TNA talent, some AEW talent. It's like, hey, what could go wrong? And plus the boys. It'll be really interesting to see. What also is really interesting is a couple days ago, Uncle Alan's son, Avery Styles, got announced for GCW. And a couple debut in GCW in about a couple weeks or so. He's had less than 5 matches, and he's already getting the rocket push. And, you know, you can, there's something to be said about being a bit of a concern troll when it comes to that stuff. Because I look at what happened to Cody Hall. It's like he was pushed pretty much the same way. Uh, wearing his first couple of matches come out wearing his dad's gear, using his dad's finisher, his dad at ringside, whatever. It's like that. Now, am I saying that the same thing's going to happen to Avery? Avery? No. It's just that it's a cautionary tale. It's like, it is a very, tough business you get to crack into, even cries of nepotism or what have you. Because having the same last name as like somebody real famous is not guarantee you're going to have a similar career. I mean, look at Joe Hennig. There's many a cautionary tale going on. It's as I'm taping this, they just announced that they're doing a show at an indie in Georgia on the 25th of the later on this month. And the Good Brothers are also on the card. Where it's but it's the first time that Avery is teaming with CJ Gallows, Gallows' son, who has a couple more matches, but he seems to have his head on his shoulders. Hopefully Avery does the same. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they're received. It's like, and do you risk the potential stunning their growth by getting them in the performance center ASAP? Probably. Arguably yes. And it'd be best for both to go wherever and whenever, just absorb as many styles as possible, and then discard what doesn't work. Trial and error, and distill your own style out of various experiences. It's going to be interesting to see about a year or two down the line how they progress. It's like, is there a chance of burnout? There could be a chance of burnout. You don't you can't there's no absolute guarantee of that, right? And I hope for the best for everybody involved. And I'm sure I'll get talking to you for that, having that opinion, but there will be people saying similar things in the future. It's like, time to develop like a thick skin when it comes to that stuff. It's like, ignore all the noise and just work on you. And it'd be interesting. Again, interesting, because it's the great unknown. You're not sure. You're not sure what's going to happen. You can also say some same thing about switching topics, about what you're going to see at an AEW show. It's like, they had sort of like a mini one of their mini pay-per-views that they do on free TV. This was like from an outdoor venue in Florida where it's like the temperature is about 102 at, in the ring. Great visuals, but the talent had to be sweltering, right? And it was seeing Kenny beating MJF, yeah, was very cathartic because they've been telling a story for the past several months, doing the AEW does the slow burn stuff. Yeah, and you could say, you can argue that MJF's more than earned like headlining All In at Wembley because of the work he's put in. But it's sort of like erring on the side of caution because of his apparently knee injuries. So it's good he didn't like try and force the issue, to try and gut it out like old school guys would, gut out and I can make it, I can do this, and then end up getting hurt worse. No, it's better that they it's something they can come back to later, because they can always build a narrative that MJF's going to end up with like a Flair type legacy where it's like 10 plus AEW championships in his career, and nobody would bat an eye about that. I mean, he just turned 30. He'll be fine. He's gonna be fine regardless, right? It was great seeing Kenny being Kenny. A little bit of New Japan snuck out Kenny during that match, and if I have a good idea who he's facing the redemption, it might come out even more, because there's no shortage of people he could have the match with. Defend the belt against. He's got returning Hangman, who's coming back apparently today for Collision, because it's in West Virginia, and you don't exactly know what his headspace is. And he's going to be opening the show with probably a promo, and that promo is going to set the direction of what he's going to do it All In, guaranteed. Who he sets his sights on. There's no one person he can about several different people he can go after, right? I mean, and plus Don Callis' family is always hanging around. Apparently they call back in the, which is what I probably might want to see, because it is in Canada. It's like they did a promo like about a month or so ago where Kenny promised Speedball Mike Bailey a shot at the title if he won. Lo and behold, he's the champ. So, so keep an eye on that little development. Everybody's talking about Kevin Knight, but Speedball is just as capable of being in the main event scene. If not more so. He's believable. He's very believable. No matter what, no matter what people think of, think of the Speedball's, his martial arts inspired gear or whatnot. Speedball is talented. more than deserves it. He's been putting on bangers for ever since he got there, and you can't say bangers without Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. It's like every match I see of Kyle Fletcher, he just gets better and better and better. There was the Randy Orton comparisons, but no, he's at the beginning, basically, but he's become his own man, and he's at the point where he has his own his finish is basically basically a run of finisher spam. But the way he's got it set up, the combination his go-to always looks devastating, and it's like as soon as he starts on the run, it's like, here it comes, right? And Takeshita, I'm sorry that sorry to see him lose the belt, one of the many belts in the AEW. But if there's any consolation, he's going to go to G1, which also starts today, by the way. It's a busy day in the wrestling world. And they're in Chicago, and Takeshita happens to be main eventing the first night of the G1, because they're starting the G1 in America. They've done this before in the past, and it's interesting. There's the talent wise on the New Japan side, they're still building new faces. So there's not a lot of familiarity with the Western fans in turn for some of these guys. You got to hope that somebody catches fire. Is this Shota Umino's crowning? This has been years in the making. It's like Shota's Red Shoes' son, and he's been through the ringer for years. Basically, they've been building him up slow, aggravatingly slow. If you ask some of the people in New Japan, some of the New Japan faithful, it's like it's big. A lot of the hardcore New Japan guys are basically saying, make a decision on, are you gonna go with him or not? They're sort of unsure of him still, but you could see the improvement from like 2 years ago, from a couple of years ago, when he was like a young boy for Moxley, and then you have like a Gabe Kidd in the best shape of his life. About to wreck his blocking G1, but doing madman things as is his want. He's real good at it. He's one of those guys where it's like you can't help but like, no matter how much of a bastard he's being. Is there like a little bit of Conor McGregor in him? Yeah, just a bit, but so what? So what? It's very. I'm interested to see what they do with him. They're teasing stuff with him and like Drilla Maloney. Wonder if Drilla's going to join become a dual contract guy with the Dogs in AEW. Speaking of dual contracts, it's like I have a feeling that El Phantasmo is not long for New Japan, but I'd like to see him, have a dual contract with New Japan and AEW. Yes, considering what he's been through in the past couple of years, and he's been loyal to that company, because New Japan does value loyalty. And he's been loyal. He's been very loyal. And they've been good to him. He's been good to them. So it'll be interesting to see what interesting to see what they do with him, because he's a talented guy. He's a little on the what they consider the older side, 39, but you would fit right in. Like the obvious thing would be to pair him with the Bang Bang Gang, and then next thing you know, you got Bullet Club forming in AEW. It's, recruiting, more recruiting. Yeah, that's whether that might be leading to something. There's like a bunch of recruiting going on all over the place. Like Don Callis is always recruiting. Dogs are recruiting. Deaf Riders are recruiting. Deaf Riders are an interesting. They're an interesting group. It's like they're riding the tweener fence to a ridiculous degree. It's like one day they'll do like they'll get cheers, the next day they'll do something, they'll get booze. It's the same guys, right? But they're still but they're getting over by being absolute badasses that they are. Now, case in point, like Claudio just did a CMLL appearance in Arena, Mexico, facing the legendary Blue Panther in a singles match. I didn't really see the full disclosure. I didn't see the full match. I've seen highlights of it, and it's like, what a great base Claudio still is. Right, he took care of Blue Panther. You took care of him very well, and Claudio ended up winning, which is a great great feather in his cap, right? I'd be that looks good really good on the resume for him. Claudio's going to go for gold in AEW soon. It's about it's about time he does. But if you believe like the dirt sheets, you might be joined by a certain fella from Ireland pretty soon. Good brother Sheamus, has basically told WWE to pound sand when they came up. Apparently, when they asked if he wanted to asked him to restructure his deal, he said no, and basically told him, "Nope, I'm gone." And the main thing is they don't know. It's not really sure if he's free now or if in 3 years when his contract is supposedly up. It's been very nebulous, and apparently his agent is like the one guy that has like a mad on for Tony Khan, has for like a couple of years. Got fired from the agency he worked for just tweeting nonstop quote unquote cocaine fueled rants, allegedly, about Tony Khan. Excuse me. And I don't what I like to see. I like to see Big Sheamus, running around AEW, like, clubbing people, stare down with Ishii, yes. Stare down with Mark Davis, yes. There's so many Haas matches, him and Brody King, oh jeez. For crying out loud, that would be, and plus there's also always the possibility he might go to Japan. Because people, fans have speculated for years that he would kill it in Japan, whether New Japan or hell, Noah, he would be over. And Noah, I could actually see him in Noah, really. But we'll see when it happens. It's like, because we're getting close to the point where it's like a lot of the 90 day non-compete clause, non-competes are coming up starting this week or so. It's like in about 2 weeks. It's like the the Motor City Machine Guns and the New Day. We're 2 weeks away from that. Both of them being cleared. I expect a lot of hints coming soon. A lot of hints coming. And it's like as far as the women go, it's like looks like they're setting up Tekla. Looks like they're setting up a triple threat between Tekla and Willow and Mercedes for some reason. And now Mercedes has bodyguards and Divine Dominion, which is an incredible, which is an incredible pairing, actually. I remember a couple of years ago when Mercedes was first coming in, they wanted to have the Renegade twins be her backups, but having Lane Cross, Megan Bain, who both can go, it's like that they all three of them can go real well, and it's like they're not afraid to mix up with anyone, and yeah, be interesting. Yeah, again, interesting things keep happening. It's like certain pairings basically get your mind thinking. You start fantasy booking. It's never as good as what you just hope it gets close to what you fantasy book. It never does, but close as possible is good enough. Right. And then you have the WWE basically going back to those same playbook that they've done over years, where it's like to try and quote unquote organically get somebody like babyface sympathy. It's like they did it with Daniel Bryan losing in like 18 seconds in the Mania match. And now they've done it with Sami Zayn. Losing CM Punk after like a 9-day reign. You have no idea. Again, there's very limited compared to AEW. There's like a very limited pool of main event talent. You're seeing like the same 5 or 6 guys like circling. Matchups you've seen for the past 2+ years. Enough bloodline to shake a stick into write like a series of novels about, right? And a whole lot of uncertainty. That's it. Yeah. And you see they go going back to some stuff like Alexa Bliss getting hurt in her match. Basically looked like her arm went in the position didn't, but it's been that apparently that's a callback from she is double jointed. So she's done this before, like 8 years or so ago, like another match. But it's a good, interesting moment. But what's the follow up? You know, they're trying to set up like the Saturday night's main event at Madison Square Garden. You know, with Punk and you know, Punk and Cody. You know, Punk, Cody, Sammy, and Gunther all basically circling each other right now. All claims the title, and you know, it's like, okay, I've seen this movie before, right? Everybody's we're in the year 4 of when is Cody turning heel? Sound familiar? Kind of sounds like first for you know, Cody and AEW. It's like you keep waiting. It, it, odds are it's not going to happen. Even though he's an amazing heel. You know, he was an amazing heel in New Japan. Um, you know, it's like it's funny. It's like the when the most over guy is Danhausen, he's not competing for any titles. He's just doing silly, you know, he's just doing character driven stuff, and he's like he's the most over person on the show. That kind of that should tell you something. It's like, you know, what are we doing? What are we doing? But you know, is there, you know, you have SummerSlam coming up, and apparently the ticket sales are way off to the tune of like 20,000 less than what it was like at this time last year. They actually apparently they also had like 2,500 tickets given back. Apparently, for some reason, it's you know it's very you know they don't really have a card. It's supposed to be 2 nights. You know, that's a problem. Like 2 nights in a stadium. It's like you know, it's epitome agreed. It's like don't need to do. If you're gonna do 2 nights in a stadium, you do it for Mania and no Mania nobody nothing none of the other pay-per-views. Because then it's not as special. If they're all two nights, they don't stand out. You know how is one going to stand out more than the other? You know, WrestleMania is supposed to be the one, right? And if they're all the WrestleMania length, right? They're all 2-day events. You know, it loses the specialness. I believe. But then again, I'm set in my ways. You know, you hope you know things get change. Yeah, well, you hope they can figure it out. But you know, sometimes it takes them a while to figure it out. You know it's kind of like U.S. soccer. I've been hearing, I've been hearing the same discourse about soccer in this country since the 1970s when Pele was playing for New York Cosmos. Everybody's since the mid 70s, people have been saying, "Oh, the U.S. is coming. We're going to be, you know, we're going to be a major power." Yeah, I've heard it for like 50 something years or so. And you know, has there been some successes? Yeah, but it's been incremental, right? And you know, there's been you know several opportunities and they've blown it. It's like the you know NASL, you know, there was one point where it's like the indoor soccer was more popular in the U.S. than outdoor. Yeah, that was like that was in the early late 70s. That was like early mid 80s. With our the local indoor team, the San Diego Sockers, basically would win every title. It was they were like the New England Patriots of indoor soccer. It's like every year they end up like they're still around. They've won like about 20 something national, 20 something championships in the sport. It's, if you don't remember like indoor soccer, okay, imagine soccer and you can substitute like hockey, and there's substitute like hockey and you can board people like hockey. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's a reason why that it was popular. A little bit of violence, a little bit of violence involved, but because the American fans love the violence in their sports, apparently. Um, the main thing for U.S. soccer is it's like it's soccer itself is like the cheapest sport to get into. All you need is a pair of cleats and a ball. That's all you need. It's like you don't really need goals. You just set up a couple trash cans. You got a goal. It's like you can play wherever. And capitalism reared its ugly head, and it's been that way since like the mid '80s when club teams started basically forming, charging a pretty penny. And they have, it's very entrenched. It's basically if you really wanted to be good, playing soccer, you'd had to pay up. And it was a little, it was basically like rich kids could play soccer, like in the 80s and 90s, 80s and beyond. And that fostered an attitude of elitism. It's like, how dare you poors, want to play soccer? And it hasn't really changed that much. It's like you can talk about the infrastructure, being needed to change, but it's something it's going to be a slow process because yeah, yeah, there's still a lot of hard headedness from like the typical American fan when it comes to soccer, where they claim they can. If we had our best, the common refrain is, we don't put our best athletes on the field. If we did, we would win everything. We put some of our NFL guys on there, like our wide receivers or whatever, and let them go. We would win everything. No, you would not. No, you would not. Because much like hockey, it's like soccer has to be developed from the age of about 4 or 5 years old and on up to be considered really good. I've been playing soccer since I was 5, and I played from when I was 5 to about 14 until it got too expensive to play. It was a combination of being too expensive to play and me suffering concussions, and yeah, that kind of got me out of it. But basically, you have to soccer is is a skilled sport. You have to build up the skill, and you practice. Just kicking the ball against the wall is not enough. Because then it's just kickball. It's like you need a whole lot of high level training, high level instruction, which is in very short supply, like in certain locales, especially if you don't have the money for it. And it's kind of sad, actually. Yeah, it's kind of sad because I like to see the U.S. become like a power in soccer. So just to say, have U.S. Team members mentioned in the same breath of like Messi and Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, which is that's a that's a generational thing. Once a generational talent, and odds are the odds that generate that so-called generational talent in the U.S. will get snatched up by another sport. Yeah, yeah. It's also like it's a different it's a different athletic pursuit because when you play soccer, it's you're running the equivalent of a 10K every every match. You have to be fit for that because I played midfield. Midfield, you had to play offense and defense. Basically, run no matter what. Run back, run forward. Basically, so yeah. Needless to say, after yeah, you want to build up your cardio. Soccer is the way to go. It still is, but you know, greed and capitalism is basically pricing out the really talented kids in, and in favor of the uh, parents with like the big enough checkbook. You could say the same thing about travel ball, whatever. The machine gun can attest to travel ball because he goes through it, and you know, will it change? It's not going to be an overnight change. It's going to take a long time, unfortunately, very long time. Let's change things up a little bit. Like got a metal recommendation of the week. It's like new Anthrax album that's coming out. They just released a second song from it. Yeah, the second song called Near Perfection or something. I believe it's. Let me look it up. Yeah, bear with me. I usually have this stuff like on the on the it's a concession of being old because I used to be on top of this shit. Yeah. Let me check. The Edge of Perfection. Yeah, that's it. It just dropped like yesterday, and it may be arguably after like 45, one of the top 10 songs Anthrax has ever done in their career. It basically combines so many elements. It starts out like on a little black metal-ish. It's a result of bassist Frank Bello being part of Satyricon. Being a touring bassist for Satyricon the past 2 years or so, and Prong, and um, some of the songs, some of the choruses remind me of like John Bush era, Sound of White Noise era, and the guitar production is really good for an Anthrax album, which is saying something. Like, and there's some people like comparing it to like 2000 era metalcore for some reason. I think, well, of course, because John Donace from Shadows Fall is like in the band. right? As their guitarist. So there's a little bit of influence there, but yeah, if that's any indication of how the rest of the album is going to be. It's going to be an all-timer it could be one of the best albums they've ever done. And the album comes out like it's in, I believe, September 18th. And it's called Cursum Perficio. And yeah, can't wait to hear the rest of it. Really can't. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the shilling. It's like you can go to like oldglory.com and get 15% off your order with the promo code Drewski. Shows available worldwide on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and now TuneIn as of like a couple days ago, which is great. And more countries are showing up, basically, downloading the show, which I'm very, very happy for. I'm glad there's people out there that want to listen to this. It's like merch, $9podcast.datchery.com. Email if you feel like it. It's like $9podcast@yahoo.com. And the clubhouse for everything Falcon's Nest is patreon.com/talk-and-shop. And if you want to see these episodes like commercial free, you just go to youtube.com/$9podcast. And that should be good enough for another week. So, and next week's like the episode 50 altogether. So I have no idea if I'm gonna have anything planned or something. Something might come up. I'm not gonna promise anything. I don't want to. It'll probably just be a basic episode, but you never know. You never know these things. So, well, I will see you.
Thanks for listening to the $9 Podcast. Support the show by going to the $9 Podcast or going to patreon.com/talkandshop to dive headlong into the insanity. See you next week.